everyone, welcome to today's episode of Mind Over Money. I'm Tim Evans and I'm joined by Lachy and Archie. Hello.
G'day Lachlan. G'day Tim.
Hello.
How's it going? Yes, the very natural hello intro. Well, let's jump into this. So today we're going to be talking about the impact of fear on our finances. So you might not know this, but I'm a little bit tall, a little bit more tall than most people. But just on the topic of fear, for me, I've never been a fan of high places. I'll say I just probably walk around scared all the time, but especially anything on a scissor lift, hey Lachy, or ladders or skydiving. That sounds like the worst thing possible that we could do. How about yourselves? How about you, Archie? Is anything that you're afraid of in this life or up in Toowoomba, the Toowoomba Hills?
Yeah, my fear is bad drivers when I'm riding a motorbike, and that's definitely in Toowoomba, but also Taiwan. It's pretty bad over there too when I'm riding a motorbike.
Oh, yeah, okay. That's a pretty warranted one. Can you stay off the motorbike, Archie? Is it possible?
Ben always gets me to go riding when I go to Taiwan. So
nice.
It's one of those things that he likes to do with his dad. And he likes to ride for a whole day. So it's a whole day of dodging bad drivers.
Well, I've been to Taiwan as well, and I felt like even walking and crossing the street had its own perils. With the scooters and zipping past to say. Yeah, so what about yourself, Lachy?
What am I afraid of?
Yeah.
I'm also scared of Toowoomba drivers. I'm scared of the dark and decaf coffee. I'm not scared of scissor lifts. I did nearly run Tim over with a scissor lift, so I think that's why he's scared of scissor lifts.
I'm scared of being under them and on them.
Tim, that was in the past. That was last week.
Okay, well, let's jump into today's episode. We are talking about the impact of fear on our finances. So thanks for joining us. What is fear? Lachy, what is fear? Can you tell us with your psychological degree, your degree in psychology and the mind, how do you define fear?
It's an emotion, that's for sure. It is an emotion. I would say it's also an action. We can be afraid of something. It's a noun in that sense. But I also think it can be a motivator. It can be something that actually motivates us more than just survival, but actually motivates us to thrive as well if we approach fear with the right mindset.
Sure. Yeah. Yeah, not just keeps us alive, keeps us off scissor lifts, but can, enhance life. That's true. That's true. Any thoughts around this, Archie?
I find, from stuff that I've been reading recently that fear is a normal survival mechanism that's actually built into us. So our brain is constantly searching for dangers and situations that we might perceive as something that's going to be dangerous or something that we need to be cautious of. And the example that I've been reading recently has been around, soldiers returning from war and that they become hypervigilant. It can be really hard for them when they return home to turn off that hypervigilance, where, basically their life was depending on seeing and hearing and noticing everything. And it can be hard for them to actually turn that off. And so that shows us that we can pick up fears and still carry those fears forward in our life. And that those fears can be impacting, especially on our finances, because of stuff that we pick up from our family, stuff that we've picked up throughout our life.
Yeah, sure. I can see that, and I can see how that can make us become hyper vigilant in all other areas in our life as well.
Yeah, we can pick up things like gambling because, again, we could have a fear that drives us down that path of gambling. And gambling doesn't just mean, that we're going to the horse races or something. Gambling can be in a lot of different areas. It can even be the way we drive, We're back to those Toowoomba drivers again.
Go that little bit faster. I reckon I can save 2 minutes.
Get in that gap.
Yeah. So what are some of the common fears that we face around finances? Because we do see a lot working with clients across different age groups and brackets and demographics and stages of life. We do see some common recurring themes of fear, things that people say and tell us and experience?
I think the most common one I've found is the fear of change. The old, the better the devil you know than the devil you don't know. And I think when it comes around making changes in terms of even banks or home loans, there can be a lot of fear because even if people don't like what they have, they understand the system, so to speak. Even if it doesn't function well, they're nice and comfortable. And I do understand that, but there is definitely a fear to step out and change. And I think that's a really common one I've seen working with clients on my end. Yeah. How about yourself, Archie?
Look, with that fear of change, we've got that fear of fraud. And so people want to have a credit card because of that fear of fraud. And we're always trying to get people to get rid of credit cards so that they're not drawn into spending money that they don't have, because that's what a credit card's designed to do. But yeah, because we're looking for that security, of using that particular system to try and manage fraud. But the biggest problem we have with fraud is, the way we operate our computers, the way we do our banking. We get caught in so many ways. It's not just having a credit card. So that will solve that problem.
Yeah, it's true.
Especially now that people are ringing up and pretending to be a bank or pretending to be something that they're not. So they're getting better at what they do. People even fear changing accountants. And I've seen some horrible accounting and, try to get people to change accountants because of how bad the accounting is. And so, we can get stuck because of fear and fear of change. We definitely can get stuck there.
Even broader, I think any service provider, whether it's your electricity provider, your utility, or some kind of company, even the airline that you fly with, people fear having a bad experience with another company. So they stick with the company that they're with, the service provider, even if they're having a bad experience with that provider. I've noticed this even with, phone providers. There's a certain phone provider that everyone thinks is the best and has the best coverage. And so people are happy to pay double the amount to stick with that provider out of fear of not having phone reception. So when it comes to service providers, we do have fear of change, even if changing could be the best thing for us.
Yeah.
Another one would be, I've seen, is a lot of fear of loss. And fear of loss, especially with younger people, this fear of like, I want to have the good life, and anything that stops me and comes in between me and the good life, I'm missing out. So that thing is bad. So that could be even saving for a house is in competition with traveling or some other goal or shopping. Yeah. Where actually buying that home is going to be really good, because if they never buy a home, they will miss out.
Yep.
Right.
Yeah.
Catch 22.
Yeah, so a common one I encounter is fear of going bankrupt. So we have people have that fear of going bankrupt because of stuff that's happened in the past. And it may be that they've actually gone bankrupt in the past or gone close to going bankrupt in the past. And so that can then become a real driver. We get that hypervigilance again around not getting into that same situation again. And so I've seen people refuse to buy property because they don't want to go through that again. They may have already lost a property through bankruptcy, and so they don't want to go back through that again. And it's that fear that's driving that situation there. And then I've also seen people lose on shares in the past. Like if we talk about the global financial crisis back in 2008, people saw that they lost money, especially around superannuation. And because they had that fear, that they were losing money, they actually pulled their money out, and they actually did lose money because they didn't keep their money invested. And then people don't want to go back into it again. They don't trust super, or they don't want to go back there again because they stuffed it up. And part of the thing about fear is we've got to take ownership for what we've done and how we've sometimes created these situations, and be able to move on from that. So I've seen fear of loss be a big problem for a lot of people.
It's a good insight.
So Another one would be fear of poverty. People have grown up with different situations, and whether they're coming to Australia from another country or whether they've grown up here in Australia, but plenty of people have grown up in poverty, and where there's been a lack of food, and sometimes that lack of food could have been caused by someone's gambling problem, like it could have been a parent having a gambling problem or a drug problem or something, and then therefore the family starts to encounter these things through their childhood. So people can start to, hoard things. And a good example of that was the toilet paper problem in COVID and people hoarding up toilet paper. And I especially saw that in people who did come through some poverty in their childhood. And, that they stockpiled cupboardfuls of toilet paper. The other thing that people do here is, even stockpile clothes, just keep buying clothes and keep buying food and hoarding up food. So, that fear of poverty and can really have a big impact on us and how we're operating with our finances.
Or buying gold bars, putting them under the bed.
Yeah.
It's silver now, Lachy, silver.
Oh, okay. Or Bitcoin.
Yeah, I mean, that list is I think it's pretty understandable. Like a lot of things we went through there, I think we've all experienced and can relate to.
Yeah.
It's part of life. And I think we don't want to demonize fear here, but we just want to acknowledge that it exists and it does affect how we navigate our finances and, all of life really. We'd love to discuss some solutions as well and bring through. So when we have those moments that are holding us back, what can we do and how can we overcome fear? And can we, by ourselves, even overcome fear? Maybe, Archie, with all your experience of working with a lot of different clients for a long time, what have you found to be the biggest kind of solution to overcome fear in our finances?
So the thing I keep noticing about fear, even in my own life, is that fear causes us to hide. Either we're trying to hide it from ourselves or we're trying to hide it from other people. And so we often have, people say to us, "Oh, I'm scared about discussing my finances with anyone." So it can be really hard for people to come out in the open and, actually be open about their finances, and find someone to actually, work this through with. And that's where we encourage people to, get help around their finances, because it's the only way you're actually going to start to probably work through some of the fears and not feel stuck, because a lot of people do feel stuck, and it is fear that's holding people back and stops us from being able to even take some steps. Like if we look at the classic, fear of spiders or snakes, you're frozen. A spider turns up and you're either frozen or you run away screaming. So it's going to cause us to either run away or just stop. One thing about living in Toowoomba, the Toowoomba area, is you cut firewood and you use firewood quite often, if you've got a wood fire. And you do get used to these giant huntsmen that are the size of your hand suddenly appearing on your hand, or climbing up your leg because they've come out of the firewood. And they used to really freak me out, but then I got used to them.
I feel like that's two fears unlocked there. A huntsman on fire upon your person. I think that's the double fear.
I haven't had that one.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah. So look, what we found is it's a bit like there's Gambling Anonymous and there's Alcohol Anonymous and and drugs as well. So when we've got something that we're really struggling with, it's good to get a group of people around you. And this was something I heard someone discussing that recently. They went to Gamblers Anonymous and they said the biggest benefit they had was having a group of people around them that, encouraged them to get through their fears and get through what it was that was causing them to have that problem. And so we found at Waymaker that, building a group of professional people to work with you on your finances really helps us to overcome fear. So it's getting that group of people around you that you have trust with and that you can take action with. is a real key.
I found that to be so important. It gives, when you're inside your own head, also things can kind of blow up and expand in size, and that fire huntsman can be now a horse-sized fire huntsman. But then when you discuss it and bring it to the light, it's like, okay, as you talk through, I can think about this with my wife. If we ever have like a problem and I'm not talking about it, as soon as we talk about it, it's like, oh, actually, that wasn't even a big deal. And I can see how just having that group of people around you just to discuss and go, oh, actually, this is not as scary as I thought it was, or there's some steps and action steps we can take to bring some solutions. I think, people are so important to bring perspective.
Yeah. Yep. And so we often see with couples, when we have couples, come and work with us, when they get those wealth partners, team members and wealth partners working with them, so they've got a group of people around them and discussing their finances with them, then we can actually get that open honesty around goals, around problems, around fears. This is when we see a lot of growth take place in people. And sometimes it can take years for that to, work its way through. We don't have to be in a big rush and get an instant solution as long as we're moving forward.
There's a quote I like from Nelson Mandela, and a lot of people have said very similar things, but he said that I learned that courage was not the absence of fear, but the triumph over it. Yeah, I think the goal is not to remove the fear, but the goal is to step out and triumph over it anyway, like regardless of it. And I think having that group around you kind of helps you realize, oh, everyone has fear. We're all afraid, and it's okay. But now, how do we take action?
So at the end of each discussion, we like to give some reflection and application questions. How can we reflect and apply what we've just discussed around fear today?
So first question is, when I feel fear, how do I react? And not putting emotion onto it, but just kind of stepping back and saying, oh, is it emotional? Or maybe do I avoid? Or do I run or go somewhere else? So maybe do I have a vice that I go to? I mean, a common one now is, oh no, I'm fearful. I just whip out my phone and scroll through Instagram. I don't know. So what's your, maybe taking a step back when that emotion wells up, you have a look, how do I react and what do I feel in that moment?
It could be to something that someone says to us, and we get that fear, like maybe a friend says something like, oh, I just bought this, or, we booked this trip, and all of a sudden it's like that fear of missing out kicks in. How do you react? How does your body and mind respond? Where does your mind go? Does it go to, I need to do that as well? Or, so I think with everything, observing and being aware is the first step. So we can kind of catch ourselves this week as we go through the motions of encountering fear. Start to be aware of how we're thinking and feeling in those moments, and maybe even what are we doing after that? Are we going to a vice, or our phone or TV or McDonald's? Yeah.
Or Kmart.
Yep.
Yep. Quick shop at Kmart solves all problems.
or for a guy, it's Bunnings.
It's true. Yeah.
Okay, so our second one is, so what area of life or what area of our finances do I feel afraid to step out in? And in this case here, we can start to think about, what's a small step that I could take? Because fear is going to stop us or cause us to run away. So if we've already recognised our fear, let's start to think about what could be a small step that I could take that could help me to move forward, even though I have this fear.
Okay, and number 3, last one. What would my life look like if I were to act in spite of my fears? So maybe just projecting out how life could be in my finances if I were to step out, if I were to start to build wealth, build generational wealth. Maybe a lot of things have happened in the past, but how could I change my future and the future of the people around me and my family? So hopefully that brings a bit of perspective and helps to pull us out of our fear a little bit.
Yeah. With that last question, I was just thinking, sometimes it's the fear of just changing jobs to be in a career that we're more happy. And that might mean you need to really focus on cash flow and get that cash flow flexible so you can take maybe a lower paying job, but you'll be a lot more fulfilled and it's more rewarding. So just thinking about that.
And because we're talking about fear, we should mention that sometimes we've got to get professional help. There's stuff that we do with Waymaker and with our wealth partners and our own team here in Waymaker that can really help. But sometimes we might just need some extra help as well. So we've got Brad Morris, who can provide counselling, and he's a family therapist. So we've got links in the show notes, or a link in the show notes here for you to contact Brad if you need to. And sometimes it just pays to have that conversation, even if you don't end up doing anything, just to have the conversation to know, okay, I can actually do this if I need to. So, we're not after being perfect here. We just encourage people, just keep working through life, because life is a challenge and stuff is going to happen throughout our life. And it's good to have people around you that are going to support you and help you through it.
All right, guys. Great discussion. As always, this is not financial advice. You should seek a professional to get personal financial advice or any kind of advice, whether it's accounting, legal, tax. We have wealth partners that we can connect you with if you go to waymakerfinance.com.au and get in touch with us, or using the links in the show notes. We hope to get Brad on the podcast soon. We haven't asked him, so if he's listening to this, Brad, come on the podcast. And we'll put a link to Brad's business Expand Counselling in the show notes. He can counsel across Zoom, so across Australia. You can book a session with him, but we'll definitely get him on soon to talk. All right, guys, till next time.
Thanks, Lachlan. Thanks, Tim.